all set? You guys?
And we're going.
Welcome to Head and Account Recruiting. I didn't even know we were started there, for gosh sakes. I'm Coach Coons along with Coach Cart and Coach Porter coming to you on I can't say balmy anymore, for gosh sakes. It's chilly here in Alabama, so I'm assuming you guys up north are a little chilly too. But I thought what we start tonight is winding down with the end of fall ball for colleges. Decision time, what players are going to do. I mean, it's roster sizes are, I believe, 34 this year, and it's down from 40. They bring a lot of players in, try them out, go that route. What does that have now for incoming freshmen? Guys, what's your take there? Players that have been brought in, now you've got to make a 34-man roster or a travel roster or whatever it is. What happens?
Kids are displaced. And it's not really, I don't think it's really that much different than it was in the past. I mean, because teams were bringing in players, cutting them before, right?
Right.
Okay. Division II rosters are huge. Division III rosters are huge because you have these schools that are enrollment driven. JUCO rosters, huge. So, basically, because Division I says you have to have this number, they're still going to bring in guys. They're still going to cut guys prior to a date. So, it's the same. And I don't know that kids understand this. At the end of fall, kids are constantly getting evaluated. And a coach that's in a position to cut kids to make their team better will. In a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Just like now, and kids have to remember this too. Just like players have all these options to transfer whenever they want and to do this and to do this in the portal, coaches have options too. I don't know that kids at times equate that. So there's always kids looking.
Oh yeah, Zach, what's your take, Zach?
Yeah, I would agree the same way. I think that there's obviously going to be some jockeying for roster positions, but looking at how fall wraps up, I'm assuming a lot of exit meetings probably take place before Thanksgiving and let guys make them aware of their positioning on the team as you go into Thanksgiving in the event that they have the opportunity to change going into winter break. But I mean, those are probably the elements that the guys are tracking to at this. I know I've seen about after the spring meetings, a lot of freshmen have been hit with reality, and they might already be shopping for a new spot. So that'll be something to continue to track, especially with, like you mentioned, Coach, the roster sizes. So it's a completely different world now.
And I think too. I think when you get recruited to a school and you go, that's not the end of the process. You've been offered a spot, you got recruited, you think you're in, and that's when reality's going to hit. Where you just said you're going to get cut, you're going to drop down a level, you're going to enter the portal because you thought you were physically good enough right then. And what coaches are doing nowadays is they're recruiting players on their potential, of where they think they can end up. I think that's where they're going with it. And if you don't work at it when you get to that campus from day one, going at it above and beyond just going out there on the field of practice, you're just going to be status quo. And then when the fall comes, it might not be a good news for you.
Well, another thing that I don't think goes through kids' minds, and Coach Cart and I kind of had the conversation about this the other day, is what makes you think there aren't 10 other kids out there? There are so many other kids. So I also think kids get lost in the fact of kind of where geographically they play high school baseball. For example, if you are in a baseball hotbed, okay, so here's the question. Such and such from this area thinks they can play, they're a Division I baseball player. Okay? And that can be any kid. And let's just say they are in a semi-rural area, and they may be one of the better players in the area. They think they can play Division I baseball. You see this all the time. They think they can play at a higher level. I think kids often forget that where are all the kids in these hotbed states going to go play?
Right.
Okay. So, like, I don't think kids think about it. Here's the other thing. What good coach doesn't try to create competition on his team? Right? So, like, if you think you're the only player they're talking to at a position, that's just, in most cases, that's just not the reality of it. So kids have to be prepared and guided appropriately, right? You have to perform. This is a performance-based situation. You have to perform. And if you don't perform, you run the risk of losing your spot, especially in today's world, in today's landscape. So, like, these 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds are competing against 23-year-old guys. And that wasn't a whole lot different at the Division II NAI level, to be honest with you, or even some situation in Division I. I mean, I remember the days where Division I schools were signing a ridiculous number of freshmen every year in November. And that's all, and in most cases, that's all they'd sign. Freshmen. And I remember offering kids as late as I could offer them in November to try to sign them. Freshmen. That's changing.
Big time.
And the landscape's changing. So, like, you've got to think. So there's a couple things. What's the roster makeup of the current team, right? What's the current roster makeup of the team? Where's this coach getting his players from?
Right.
There's coaches have their own geographical, I like this, blah, blah, blah. What makes you think that you can play there, right? I mean, I think in the recruiting process, kids need people like us to bring them to reality a lot. Because when you're real with yourself and you're real with the situation, the recruiting process is going to go a lot better. Because that helps you find the place you're going to fit. And I think that's for everybody. And for every kid out there, to be honest with you, for every kid from a small town or wherever that thinks that, that loses track of the fact that there's kids in a lot better baseball areas, there's also the kid that is undervalued that can play at a higher level as well. and it's a funny game. I mean, you see it in scout at the pro level. You see it in other sports. It's a funny game when it comes to placement, evaluation, and all that stuff. But the bottom line to kids is you've got to perform, and you need to be in an environment that's going to allow you to perform at your best. That's just fact.
So, Coach, let's take it back. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
No, and I was going to say no excuses, because you get out of it what you put into it. Go ahead, Zach.
No, I was going to. So Coach, let's imagine we're sitting in your office at Texas A&M International, and you've just, let's take it back a week and say we're getting ready to go on Thanksgiving break, and you've identified some needs that you have after fall ball. What are you doing?
So that's a really good question. So here's what some guys are going to do. Here's what we've done, blah, blah, blah. So some coaches actually scholarship money aside, if they can, for mid-year transfers. Now you got to also, once a kid signs that grant and aid, that's good for a year, right?
Correct.
So if you cut a kid and he stays at the school, and you've obviously got to honor that, and most people will. Okay, you have to. But we are calling all of our contacts. I've got people looking in the portal for us, and we're looking for. And today, it's obviously easier. You're looking to bring in somebody at the break, and most coaches are going to identify that stuff early in the fall. Your deficiency, or maybe you didn't sign a kid that you thought. Maybe you had a kid back out the first week of August. It happens all the time. Maybe you had a kid back out first week of August. A little bit of money. Maybe there's a kid that's going to leave at the semester. Okay. Maybe there's a kid that's going to leave at the semester, and you gave that kid half a ride. Well, the NCAA is going to make you count, I believe, half a ride that you've allocated. Okay. And if the student leaves the institution, you should use some of that equivalency, if that's the same. Or you're talking to guys going, listen, I'll give you this much next year, because I don't have it right now. It just depending on, what's crazy is I would have kids I would recruit hard in the summer or whatever and lose them, and they would go somewhere and not like it and then want to transfer at the break. You would see that. But listen,
what do you
right
run
now,
into eligibility with that?
So a lot of it depends on whether or not they were a qualifier or not. If they're a freshman, if they were a qualifier, so the rules have changed a little bit though. If they've done a year of residence, that the residency requirement was always an issue. Progress towards degree. 9 transferable hours. At one point it was 6. At one point I think it was back in the day it was just 3, right? So progress. If they meet progress towards degree and are a qualifier, then we were in business. If we could use the one-time transfer exception, which I don't even know is a thing anymore, I mean, I don't even know that that's a thing anymore, but we could use that as well.
Did you have issues any times going from NAIA to NCAA or vice versa?
No. It's all about residency, GPA, progress towards degree, transferable hours, all that stuff. So, like, for example, in the NCAA handbook, it used to be you have to have what 12 transferable hours, 12 transferable hours for every full-time semester, and you got to meet progress towards degree. And there used to be an averaging thing and all that stuff. So, you know, we could look at a transcript because we recruited a lot of transfers. Later in my career, I would say from year 9 on, more transfers than, you know, I would have classes of 11 or 12 and, 10 of them would be transfers. And that's not at the Division II level. That's not uncommon. That's very common. JUCO kids, whatever. So we've got good enough. We could look at the transcript and be like, this kid's going to be eligible or not. It's going to transfer. So no, because you got to think those NAIA classes, they're still legitimate courses. The same higher learning commission that checks the boxes on, a Division II school is the same one at an NAIA school. Just the eligibility rules from NAIA Division II are still, are just different. But, going from NAIA to Division II, you're just flipping the script and going off the D2 rules. So not a lot. We would run into junior college guys because the NCAA changed the requirement of the amount of physical education courses junior college kids could take and transfer. Okay? And what back in the day in California at those community colleges, those kids were taking, and they might still, but they would take like baseball 1. So their coach would also be a teacher, and part of their teaching duties was to teach baseball. So they would have all these hours of phys ed. Well, the NCAA changed that up. So we would run into that every once in a while, where you'd run into a developmental level course, like a student had to take like an intro to math. Well, these classes have to be, obviously, I don't want to say they're not college level. They are college level, but they have to be applicable towards a degree.
Yep.
So that's what you'd run into that stuff. But with the NCAA kids, if a kid was a qualifier out of high school, met progress towards degree after that first semester, we were in business. And that's the good thing about a high school kid. There's two good things. There's in JUCO kids, there's the golden ticket of getting your associate's degree, right? And with high school kids, being a qualifier. And that it's like you just look on there, they're eligible. Done. But being eligible doesn't mean you're going to get accepted to the university, by the way.
Right.
I mean, so there's the other thing, being able to accept them. International kids. We try to bring in some international kids at the break. And that's tough, getting their paperwork and all that stuff by January. But the good thing is that a lot of schools, you have until like, the 5th day of class to get a kid in. So people will be like, oh, are you guys done recruiting? I'm like, no, we recruited all the way through January the 10th. Every single year. We recruited through so like, oh, well, school starts August 20th. That's fine. But if we can make our team better by January 10th, when the NCAA lets us start practice, or even a couple of days later, we're going to do it. And a lot of coaches have that mindset. Kids don't understand that. That's where we come in with the nuances of the recruiting.
Right.
But at the same time, right? I mean, if someone's seeing this podcast and they're wrapping up their Thanksgiving break, going to return to classes tomorrow, and they're saying, it's not working out at X school, then the clock's ticking. And so they're going to have probably a week of class, finals, and they got to figure things out fast if they're going to try to land a spot. And coach, I think that's the point you're making is, hey, that clock is moving and that's ticking now to try to land that.
Well, the other part of that is, you're a mid-year transfer in today's, like, I think the Cubs probably have the upper hand mid-year in a sport that plays in the spring to the transfer and leverage. Let's be honest, because spots are even more limited now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So kids are going to go back recruited them before. So when you call and you say, Coach Porter, I've committed to another school, and I say, is there anything I can do to change that? Because we've been working hard with you, right? And they're like, well, the difference in the school is $1,000. Okay. We just had a kid decommit yesterday. I got 1,500. I mean, there's a business end to this. I don't care what anybody says. We're salesmen, not us, but I mean, like anybody else, the kid wants to get the cheaper education. The coach wants to get them for the cheapest so they can get more players, more bang for your buck. People don't think about that, right? That doesn't mean you're lying. That doesn't mean anything like that. But if I make an initial offer, if I lowball a kid and say, I think I can get a kid for, after I do my homework, if I can get a kid for $7,000 instead of $9,500, I'm going to do it and take that extra $2,500 and try to keep my number one pitcher
Mm-hmm.
who, right? Let's be honest with ourselves. But after I do my homework, mom's a lawyer. Dad owns his own construction company. He's a really good player. They like us a lot. I'm going to throw this out first. Let's talk. Right? So, with that being said, I think at the break, if a coach has some money and there's people there looking, I think the coach kind of maybe coaches kind of have the leverage. I think at the day after the season's over, I think maybe the players do now, especially when we're not blocking transfers like we used to, right? So personally, but the clock's ticking. You're probably, so back to my initial conversation. Kid says, "No, coach, whatever. There's nothing you can do. I really like this school." I said, "Okay, man. I think you're a great kid. Best of luck. If something changes, calls me. Wish you nothing but the best." Click. Kid calls back, gets his release, whatever. Kid calls back on, December 23rd. Okay. Or 24th. Listen, I would go into rooms on Christmas Day and text my recruits, "Merry
Correct.
Christmas."
That's right.
And I would engage in conversation. And while people didn't know, okay? Meaning like my family. So anyway, then that kid calls back on, December 23rd and says, "Hey, I got my transcript. I got a 3.5 GPA, blah, 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 blah. It just didn't work out. I'd like," and which is the case. Here's the other thing. Like, I transferred, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Okay. So that's, as a coach, not burning a bridge when the kid commits somewhere else might allow you to get a player in the long run. As a player, not burning a bridge by being straight up with the coach when you are going to go somewhere else might not burn a bridge and might allow you to go somewhere else. So that you've got that end of it too. So there's all kinds of games and nuances to this, and what on X, what might look like a simple task. I'm going to just put myself out there, as people will say, like it's that easy. I'm just going to put myself out there and my name out there. It's going to be easier for some when you're throwing 94, 92 with, with a dirty slider, and you've thrown 30 innings at Baylor. You're going to get a lot of interest. If you throw 82 to 84 at a school and didn't throw any innings before, you're probably not going to get the interest that that one would do, if that makes sense. So,
Yep.
like, and that doesn't mean there's not a place for you. I'm just saying, like, the one thing that hasn't changed with all the new recruiting stuff is the fact that you got to perform and you got to be good, and there's a place for you, but the timing's got to be right and all that stuff. And it's, listen, the whole process is easier for some than others. There's a lot of good baseball players out there that don't have homes right now.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of good baseball players out there right now that do not have homes. And the whole idea of if you're good enough, you're going to get noticed. It's just not. You're playing with fire. I know a lot of good guys that sign really, really late and don't have options. So
I think like you're saying, the good enough, physical enough, all that stuff, that's a good asset once you've signed. Once you, if you're good enough and you're physical and you're strong and you're tough, you don't have to worry about the numbers game or the politics of making the team. The politics and the numbers game are reserved for the average or the below average performer or kid once they're there. But to get your foot in the door, like you just said, good enough just doesn't cut it. You need that extra push, from people like us or some other avenue.
Like, there's a kid that we've worked with, and he gave me a list of schools. And I thought a couple of those schools are good. They're all good baseball schools, all great baseball coaches. I've seen this kid perform in live games, and I'm like, school A is not a good fit for you because of the young man's mentality. School C is a better fit for you because of the head coach's mentality. Every guy's different. Not every kid was a good fit to play for me. That's just, it just is what it is. I mean, like, some people are not, it just is what it is, right? And that's not a negative thing, right? So that's a help. But I want to put this in perspective. We're all 3 7%ers. We played college baseball. Your son, Coach Coons, 7%er, and he's a 1%er to play pro ball, right?
Right.
Is it 1%, right? So if that's all that's making it in college baseball, okay, or I said my thought backwards. There are 1,000 guys that are good enough to play pro baseball that never get the opportunity.
That's correct. Agree.
Okay. So what makes you think that there are thousands of guys that never get the opportunity to play college baseball either? Think about it.
Okay.
So, like, if there's guys that are capable of playing pro baseball that never make it, there's a lot of guys in college baseball that can never make it. So,
No doubt about it.
You need, in a lot of situations, you need people like us helping you.
We can help get you in the door. At least get your foot in the door, point you in that direction.
Yeah. After that, you got to perform. Like, as a junior college coach said to me one time, and he made a really, really good point. So I recruited like 3 of the 3 kids, the first 3 or 4 kids I recruited from this JUCO, I struck out on. I mean, I had them, right? And then somewhere else, come and get them. And I'm like, man, I was like, we didn't sign this one, this one. He looks at me, and goes, I can't move the guys in for you. And I'm like, that's a really, really good. And later on, we signed some really good players from that JUCO. But sometimes, luck. You need a little bit of luck.
That's right.
And he's like, I can't. So like we can get you there to a point. You still got to play. You got to perform.
Yep.
Great points. Coach Cart, anything in closing?
I think we hit it. I mean, the fall's clearly wrapped up. We're finishing up the turkey, right? We've got a couple weeks here for the guys that are in the middle, that are in between, that might be shopping for that new place. Time is of the essence, and right now is could be a shortcut to utilize our services to try to help you find that spot.
One thing we did not. What's that?
Go ahead.
We didn't hit on academic casualties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coaches
That might be
going through academic casualties. Because unless something's changed, you don't have to honor the scholarship. The kid's ineligible. The kid, nor should you have to.
Yep. I know they're out. I know you're out there because I went to see my son for Thanksgiving, and I talked to 2 kids in that scenario. They're in between. They're not sure what they're doing. Handed them a card. Got a call on the drive home today from one. So it's
Good.
they're out there. You can't be afraid to ask for help. Because we don't get any credit for doing this. We want to help you. That's our goal. So, but we'll be on next next Sunday. We'll have a new topic. Maybe we'll have a guest. We should have a guest for somebody. The holiday time, we should get somebody in that festive spirit. Other than Coach Porter, he's always in the festive spirit. But I mean, we should we'll find somebody to talk on a different facet of the game. But we also hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and you got Monday back at school. You push hard till you get to that Christmas break, and we'll see you next week.